Nature is abundant and beautiful. Some of it we've explored, but there are many life processes and habits in the wild we just never get to see.
In the sweltering heat of Florida's summer, scientists have stumbled upon a nightmare in the making. Caterpillars, once destined to emerge as delicate, colorful butterflies, are now transforming into creatures that defy nature itself. With twisted forms, grotesque features, and behaviors that seem almost alien, these once innocent larvae are sending shockwaves through the scientific community. So, what could be causing such a horrifying mutation? Could it signal a deeper environmental catastrophe? Join us as we uncover the shocking cause of this unprecedented transformation of caterpillars in Florida. Florida Caterpillar Mutation Haunt. Florida has always been known for its unique wildlife, from alligators in the swamps to rare birds along its coastline. But a strange and worrying phenomenon has recently caught the attention of scientists, nature enthusiasts, and ordinary residents alike. Caterpillars, the tiny creatures that normally transform into butterflies, have been failing to complete their magical transformation. Instead of emerging as colorful, winged insects, something unusual and in some cases horrifying has been happening. The first reports of this phenomenon began to surface in early 2023. Gardeners and homeowners across several parts of Florida noticed that their caterpillars were disappearing into their cocoons, but never reappearing as butterflies. Some caterpillars seemed to remain stuck in their cocoons, while others turned into strange, deformed versions of butterflies that could not fly. Researchers quickly began investigating which areas and species were most affected. Preliminary studies showed that the phenomenon was not limited to a single species of caterpillar. Popular species such as the monarch butterfly caterpillar, the swallowtail, and the black swallowtail were all showing abnormal development. However, some species seemed more affected than others. For instance, monarch caterpillars, which are normally resilient and widespread across Florida, appeared to be the hardest hit. Entire batches of monarchs in private gardens and natural reserves failed to emerge from their chrysalis stage. Geographically, the problem has been concentrated in the central and southern parts of Florida. Regions like Orlando, Tampa, and Miami have reported the highest number of cases. Scientists believe that environmental factors could be playing a role, given that these areas have a combination of urban development, agricultural activity, and a high density of human population. However, unusual cases were also reported in more rural areas, suggesting that the problem is complex and cannot be attributed solely to urbanization or pollution. The timeline of this strange phenomenon is equally puzzling. While some experts believe that isolated incidents may have occurred earlier, the first widespread reports were officially documented in January 2023. By March 2023, entomologists, scientists who study insects, began noticing patterns and collecting data. By mid-2023, a formal study had been launched to track affected species, regions, and environmental conditions. Throughout 2023, the observations grew more alarming. Normally, caterpillars take about 10 to 14 days to form a chrysalis, and another 10 to 14 days to emerge as a butterfly. But in affected areas, the timeline was disrupted. Some caterpillars remained in the chrysalis for months, while others emerged only partially formed, with deformed wings or incomplete body structures. By the fall of 2023, scientists had documented hundreds of cases, but the underlying cause remained unclear. Researchers have been exploring several possible explanations. Pesticide use is one of the first factors being studied. Many caterpillars feed on milkweed, citrus leaves, or garden plants that are sometimes treated with chemicals. While pesticides can harm insects, the scale and sudden appearance of this phenomenon suggest that something more complex may be at work. Another theory involves climate change and unusual weather patterns. Florida has experienced hotter summers, heavier rainfall in certain months, and unseasonal cold snaps, which could disrupt the delicate hormonal changes caterpillars undergo during metamorphosis. Parasites and diseases are also being considered. Caterpillars are vulnerable to various viruses, bacteria, and parasitic wasps. While these naturally occur in the environment, the sudden surge in abnormalities hints at the possibility of a new or previously unnoticed pathogen. Scientists are conducting laboratory tests to see if any microbes, toxins, or environmental chemicals are interfering with the caterpillar's natural development. This strange phenomenon has caused concern not only among scientists, but also among environmentalists and the general public. Butterflies play a crucial role in pollination, which is vital for flowers, fruits, and vegetables. A significant decline in butterfly populations could have a ripple effect on ecosystems, affecting plants and the animals that depend on them. Additionally, butterflies are important indicators of environmental health. Their disappearance or mutation could signal broader ecological problems in Florida. So, what is the usual life cycle of a caterpillar? Is it the same in Florida? Let's find out. Normal life cycle of a caterpillar. Florida is home to hundreds of butterfly species, from the large zebra longwing, Florida's state butterfly, to the tiny blues that flutter around gardens. These butterflies all begin life as caterpillars, and their transformation is one of the most amazing natural processes in the state. Understanding how caterpillars normally grow in Florida helps us see how delicate and important this cycle is, especially in a place known for its warm weather, rich plant life, and diverse ecosystems. In Florida's warm climate, a butterfly can lay eggs many times throughout the year. A female butterfly chooses plants that her future caterpillars can safely eat, such as milkweed, passion vine, citrus leaves, and wildflowers found all over Florida's parks and backyards. She usually lays her eggs on the underside of the leaves to protect them from Florida's strong sun and heavy rain. These eggs are very tiny, often between 1 and 2 millimeters, and they can be round, oval, or shaped like tiny cones. In Florida's heat, the eggs often hatch faster than they do in cooler states. While eggs in colder areas may take a week or more to hatch, Florida's eggs can hatch in just 3 to 5 days. But this stage is risky. Florida has many predators that love to eat butterfly eggs, including ants, lizards, birds, and even tiny insects like wasps. Despite these dangers, these eggs are the start of a cycle that keeps Florida's butterfly population alive. Without them, Florida's natural beauty would lose some of its most colorful creatures. When the egg hatches, a small caterpillar appears. This is the larva stage, and it is the most active part of the butterfly's life. In Florida, caterpillars grow quickly because food is available almost all year. They eat the leaves of the plant they were born on, and some species can eat several times their own weight in one day. As the caterpillar grows, it sheds its skin because the old one becomes too tight. This happens about 4 to 6 times, depending on the species. These stages between skin changes are called instars. Each instar brings changes in appearance. Some Florida caterpillars develop bright colors to warn predators they are poisonous, like the monarch caterpillar with its yellow, black, and white stripes. Others develop spikes or spots to blend into Florida's leafy surroundings. The larva stage usually lasts 2 to 4 weeks in Florida, thanks to the warm temperature that encourages fast growth. During this time, the caterpillar's only job is to eat and store energy for the next stage, which is the most dramatic and vulnerable part of its life. After eating enough and reaching full size, the caterpillar finds a safe place to begin its transformation. In Florida, Caterpillars often attach themselves to the underside of leaves, branches, fences, or even outdoor furniture. Once secure, the caterpillar forms a hard outer shell called a chrysalis. Inside this chrysalis, a truly amazing change happens. The caterpillar's body breaks down into a liquid-like form and then slowly rebuilds itself into a butterfly. This stage is one of nature's greatest wonders, and in Florida, it usually lasts around 7 to 14 days, depending on the species and temperature. Because Florida has so many predators, like birds, frogs, geckos, and spiders, many chrysalises have adapted to blend in perfectly with their surroundings. Some look like small green leaves, others resemble tree bark, and a few even look like dried shells. This camouflage is important because the chrysalis cannot move, escape, or defend itself. When the transformation is complete, the adult butterfly emerges from the chrysalis. At first, its wings are soft, folded, and wet. The butterfly must pump fluid into its wings to make them expand. Once the wings dry and harden, the butterfly can take its first flight. The adult butterfly's main purpose is to mate and lay eggs. In Florida's warm climate, many butterflies live longer than those in colder states because they can find food all year. Butterflies survive on nectar from flowers, and Florida provides plenty of it through native plants and tropical gardens. Florida butterflies are not just beautiful. They play a major role in keeping the state's ecosystems healthy. By flying from flower to flower, they help pollinate many plants. This means they help fruits, seeds, and new plants grow. What are the caterpillars turning into? Could it be as terrifying as it's speculated? Let's take a closer look. Creepy transformation of caterpillars in Florida. Florida is known for its sunshine, beaches, and wildlife. But in recent months, something strange and unsettling has been happening in the state's natural world. People across Florida, from Miami to Tallahassee, have been reporting an unusual and frightening phenomenon. Caterpillars that should be turning into butterflies are transforming into something completely different. These tiny creatures, which usually go through a peaceful, predictable cycle, are now emerging from their chrysalis in forms that look creepy, unnatural, and in some cases, downright horrifying. This bizarre transformation has caught the attention of scientists, wildlife experts, and ordinary residents who spend time outdoors. The state, famous for hosting over 200 butterfly species, has suddenly become the center of a biological mystery. What is happening to these caterpillars? Why are they not turning into normal butterflies anymore? And what are they becoming instead? To understand the issue, it helps to know what the normal transformation should look like. A caterpillar usually starts as a tiny egg laid on a leaf. After a few days, it hatches into a larva, the crawling, hungry caterpillar we all recognize. This stage lasts for about 2 to 4 weeks. Then it forms a chrysalis, also called a pupa, where it stays for around 7 to 14 days. Inside this protective shell, its body breaks down and rebuilds itself into a butterfly. Normally, when the chrysalis finally opens, a beautiful butterfly with soft wings crawls out, dries its wings for a few minutes, and flies into the Florida sun. But lately, in many parts of Florida, that final stage is going terribly wrong. Instead of emerging as butterflies, some caterpillars are turning into twisted, misshapen creatures. Witnesses say the new forms look like a strange mix between a caterpillar and a moth, with features that don't match either one. Their wings, if they even have wings, appear crumpled, thick, or leathery. Some have strange dark patches on their bodies, while others come out with long, spiny growths that were never seen before in local species. One resident of Orlando described what she saw while checking on monarch caterpillars in her garden. It looked like the chrysalis melted around the creature inside. When it finally came out, it didn't look like a butterfly at all. Its wings were too small for its body, and it moved in short, jerky motions. She had been raising butterflies for over 10 years and said she had never seen anything like this. Physical changes are the most obvious signs of this weird transformation. Instead of the delicate wings that butterflies normally have, these new forms often show thick, veiny structures that look more like stiff membranes. Some come out with wings that never fully open, staying folded and useless. Their legs look longer and sharper, and their antennae appear shorter or crooked. The bright, cheerful colors that Florida butterflies are known for are missing too. Instead, these creatures show dull browns, grayish greens, or strange dark streaks that make them look sickly or unnatural. Normal butterflies are gentle creatures. They float from flower to flower, feeding on nectar and pollinating plants. They avoid danger whenever possible. But these new forms seem restless and agitated. Some witnesses say they move faster than normal butterflies. Others report that these creatures cluster in odd groups, crawling over each other like they're confused or panicking. A few people have even claimed the transformed insects seem more aggressive, flying toward lights or people instead of away from them. A wildlife expert in Gainesville, who has studied Florida insects for more than 20 years, shared his observations. After examining several malformed chrysalis samples and the creatures inside them, he reported that something is clearly disrupting their development. It's as if the transformation process is being interrupted or rewritten, he explained. We are not seeing typical butterfly structures. The tissue growth is uneven, and in some cases, the nervous system appears to be developing irregularly. Whatever is happening is affecting how these creatures think, move, and react. Scientists have begun to investigate possible causes. Florida's warm climate, which usually supports healthy butterfly populations, may be playing a role in accelerating certain environmental stress factors. Some researchers suspect a new parasite or virus is spreading through caterpillar populations. Others think pollution or chemical changes in the soil and plants could be forcing their bodies to mutate during the chrysalis stage. Witnesses from the Everglades, Tampa Bay, and parts of South Florida have reported seeing the same disturbing patterns. In some areas, residents found chrysalis shells broken open early, with the creature inside already dead or only half transformed. In other areas, people have spotted clusters of the mutated creatures crawling on tree trunks instead of flying. Florida hiking groups and nature photographers began sharing pictures online around late 2024, which brought even more attention to the issue. Many of these photos show chrysalis cases that look cracked, burned, or oddly stretched. In 2025, the first scientific team officially confirmed that the phenomenon was spreading. What could have actually led to the mutation? What are scientists' views on it? Let's find out. Possible causes behind the mutation. Scientists are now trying to understand what could possibly cause such a dramatic and frightening mutation. They have come up with several possible explanations, including environmental changes, infections, and genetic problems. Each theory reveals a different layer of the mystery, and together, they help us understand how Florida's natural world might be undergoing a serious shift. One of the biggest suspects behind the mutation problem is the environment. Florida has always been affected by weather patterns, but in recent years, things have become even more extreme. Scientists have noticed that temperatures in the state have been rising during the past few decades. Some areas experience longer summers, hotter heat waves, and unpredictable storms. These changes may not seem like much at first, But for tiny creatures like caterpillars, even small shifts in temperature or humidity can completely affect how they grow. Also, pollution has become a growing issue. In cities like Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Jacksonville, the air and water often carry chemicals from cars, factories, and human waste. When caterpillars feed on leaves coated with polluted dust or chemicals, those toxins can enter their bodies. Over time, this could harm their cells, damage their DNA, or interrupt their natural transformation process. But one of the biggest environmental threats is the heavy use of pesticides. Farmers and homeowners across Florida use chemicals to kill pests that damage crops and gardens. Unfortunately, many of these pesticides do not only kill harmful insects, they also affect harmless species like butterflies and caterpillars. When caterpillars ingest these chemicals, their bodies may react in unexpected ways. Some scientists believe that pesticides could be triggering abnormal growth patterns, leading to the horrifying mutated forms people are reporting. Environmental changes might not explain everything, but they seem to play a major role in altering the delicate balance of nature. Another strong possibility is infections. Just like humans can get sick from viruses and bacteria, insects can also suffer from different types of diseases. Some of these diseases can be mild, but others can cause serious physical deformities. Florida's warm and humid climate is the perfect place for viruses, bacteria, and fungi to spread quickly. In fact, scientists have already documented many insect viruses that can change how insects grow. If a caterpillar becomes infected while it's forming its chrysalis, the infection could disrupt the transformation process, causing the butterfly to come out looking strange, incomplete, or severely mutated. Experts are now testing samples from different parts of Florida to see if one particular virus or fungus is responsible. Some early reports suggest that a rare insect virus, normally found in tropical forests, may have reached Florida due to global travel or changes in wind patterns. If this virus infects caterpillars, it might damage their tissues and prevent them from forming wings or developing properly. Infected caterpillars have been observed acting differently too. Some move more slowly, while others become unusually aggressive. Normally, caterpillars hide quietly to protect themselves, but infected ones may wander into open areas, making them easier to spot by humans. While infections alone may not explain all the strange transformations, they are definitely a strong part of the puzzle. The final major theory is genetic mutation, changes happening inside the caterpillar's DNA. DNA is like a set of instructions that tells the caterpillar how to grow, when to form a chrysalis, and what its butterfly shape should look like. If something interferes with the DNA, even slightly, the results can be shocking. Genetic mutations happen naturally all the time, but they can also be triggered by outside forces like radiation, chemicals, or even microscopic parasites. In Florida's case, scientists are concerned that a combination of climate change, pollution, and disease could be pushing the caterpillar's DNA to mutate in dangerous ways. Some experts believe the mutations might be happening faster than usual, which is unusual in nature. It normally takes countless generations for DNA to show major changes, but in this case, mutations appear to be happening within a few generations, or even within one season. That's why scientists are alarmed. It suggests something powerful and unseen may be acting on the caterpillars. These genetic mutations might explain why caterpillars are emerging with twisted limbs, missing wings, strange colors, or completely new body shapes. It could also explain why different regions of Florida are seeing different forms of the mutations. If the DNA changes vary from place to place, the results would look different too. The situation with Florida's caterpillars is not just a small insect problem. Butterflies play a huge role in pollination, plant growth, and food chains. How does it affect Florida's ecosystem? Will there be a decline in plant life? Let's take a closer, deep impact on Florida's ecosystem. The sudden drop in butterflies and the strange changes happening to caterpillars are causing serious problems for Florida's ecosystem. Butterflies may look small and delicate, but they play a huge role in keeping nature balanced. When they disappear, many parts of the environment begin to fall apart piece by piece. In Florida, where many plants, animals, and insects depend on one another, the loss of butterflies is already creating clear and worrying effects. One of the biggest impacts can be seen in pollination. Butterflies help move pollen from one plant to another when they stop to drink nectar. This simple action allows plants to produce fruits, seeds, and new growth. In many parts of Florida, especially areas like central farmlands, coastal regions with wildflowers, and forested parks, butterflies help pollinate countless plant species. When fewer butterflies appear, plants get less pollen, and this slows down their ability to reproduce. Over time, certain flowers that depend heavily on butterflies may stop growing in large numbers. This can change the look and health of natural areas, as fewer flowering plants means less color, less food for insects, and fewer places for small animals to hide. Florida is home to many native plants that have evolved over thousands of years to match local butterfly species. When these butterflies go missing, those plants are left without one of their main helpers. For instance, flowering plants that bloom in warm seasons depend greatly on butterflies because these insects travel long distances, spreading pollen more widely than some other pollinators. If this pattern continues, whole plant communities could shrink. This will not only affect the beauty of Florida's natural landscapes, but also the stability of the soil, the spread of seeds, and the availability of food for other creatures. The effects also spread to predators, animals that rely on butterflies or caterpillars for food. Birds, especially small songbirds, depend on caterpillars to feed their chicks. A single baby bird can eat dozens of caterpillars in one day. If caterpillars are not turning into butterflies properly, or if their numbers keep dropping, birds struggle to find enough food. This can lead to fewer successful nests, fewer young birds surviving, and eventually a decline in certain bird populations across the state. Florida's bird life is diverse, with species like warblers, bluebirds, and even some migratory birds depending on these insects during breeding seasons. A drop in caterpillars means these birds may start leaving earlier, moving to other places, or simply failing to reproduce in healthy numbers. Other predators, including spiders, lizards, and small mammals like bats, also feel the impact. In Florida's warm and humid environment, these predators rely on a steady stream of insects to survive. Butterflies and caterpillars add important variety to their diet. When they disappear or transform incorrectly into weaker or unfit forms, predators cannot rely on them as a stable food source. This can cause predators to shift their diet to other insects, putting extra pressure on those populations. Eventually, this creates an imbalance where some insect species become too few, while others may grow too many. Either direction causes trouble for the natural order. In addition to direct predators, many other species are indirectly affected. For instance, bees may face more competition for nectar if butterflies stop pollinating efficiently. Plants that depend on both bees and butterflies may struggle even more, resulting in deeper stress on the ecosystem. In wetlands, where Florida's unique mixture of saltwater and freshwater supports rare plants, butterflies act as silent guardians by spreading pollen across long distances. The absence of these pollinators leaves sensitive plants at risk, creating room for invasive species to take over. Invasive plants can choke the land, block sunlight, and reduce food supplies for native animals. If this strange trend with caterpillars and butterflies continues for many years, the long-term consequences could be severe. First, the decline in plant life would affect everything from soil health to water flow. Plants help stabilize the sandy soil found across much of Florida. Without enough plant roots holding the soil in place, erosion becomes more common. Strong winds, tropical storms, and heavy rains, events Florida frequently experiences, would wash soil away more easily. This not only damages natural habitats, but also affects farms, coastal protections, and freshwater sources. Second, the decline in pollination would cause long-term changes in agriculture. Florida grows many fruits and crops that rely partly on insects for pollination. Even though bees are major pollinators, butterflies help maintain balance in the ecosystem that supports bee populations. If butterflies keep disappearing, the entire pollination web weakens. Farmers could see lower yields in crops like berries, melons, and certain vegetables. This could lead to higher prices, reduced supply, and economic strain. Third, the food chain would become unstable. If birds lose caterpillars, if lizards lose butterflies, and if plants lose pollinators, eventually everything connects back to humans. Wildlife tourism, which is a big part of Florida's economy, may decline as birds, plants, and insects become less diverse. What does it mean for the future? Could it likely spread to other places? Let's explore further. Terrifying future of Florida caterpillar mutation. When people in Florida first noticed that caterpillars were no longer turning into butterflies, many hoped it was just a strange, short-term problem. But as more days passed and more reports came in, scientists began to fear something much bigger was happening. Something that could extend far beyond Florida's borders. If this unusual transformation continues, the future could become frightening not only for insects, not only for plants, but for entire ecosystems and even humans. The signs we are seeing now may only be the beginning of a long and troubling chain reaction. One of the biggest fears experts have is the possibility that this strange transformation could spread to other states, or even to other countries. Florida is connected to the rest of the United States through highways, trade routes, and natural wind patterns that can carry insects over long distances. A single caterpillar affected by this mysterious change could easily be transported in a shipment of plants, fruits, or garden materials. Birds can also carry infected larvae from one place to another without even knowing it. If just a small number of these mutated caterpillars reach neighboring states like Georgia or Alabama, the problem could begin spreading rapidly. Within a few months, states as far away as Texas, South Carolina, or even California could start seeing similar cases. This threat becomes even more worrying when we consider how easily insect species travel across the world. Cargo ships, airplanes, and imported plants could accidentally introduce these altered caterpillars to countries in South America, Europe, or Africa. What began as a Florida mystery could turn into a global problem. And once the phenomenon spreads to different climates and ecosystems, it may behave in unpredictable ways. A mutation that behaves mildly in Florida's warm, humid climate might become far more aggressive in colder or drier regions. Scientists fear that by the time the world understands the full scale of the issue, it could already be too late to contain it. If the transformation continues and spreads, many other insect species could be at risk. Butterflies are very sensitive to changes in the environment, which means they are often the first to show signs of trouble. If whatever is causing this transformation, whether a toxin, a parasite, a mutation, or something unknown, begins affecting other insects, The consequences could be devastating. Bees, for example, share some of the same food sources and environments as butterflies. If bees start suffering from similar mutations, the impact on agriculture would be enormous. Bees are responsible for pollinating around 75% of the fruits, vegetables, and nuts we eat. Even a small decline in their population can lead to reduced crop production. A major decline could cause food shortages across entire regions. Other insects like moths, beetles, and ants could also be affected. Moths play a major role in pollinating plants at night, while beetles help break down decaying material and recycle nutrients back into the soil. Ants spread seeds and keep other pest species under control. If these insects begin to mutate, weaken, or disappear, the balance of nature would be disrupted. Plants that rely on insects would struggle to survive. Predators that rely on those insects, like birds, lizards, frogs, and bats, would begin starving. This chain reaction could collapse entire ecosystems in a matter of years. The broader environment would begin to change in ways people might not expect. Forests could become thinner as certain tree species fail to reproduce. Wetlands might become overrun with plants that normally stay in check thanks to insects that feed on them. Farmland would become harder to maintain, forcing farmers to rely on artificial pollination methods or expensive imported crops. So, what do you think about the shocking development of the Florida caterpillars? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.